Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another Talking Classic Cars. I'm Jay Ward.
And I'm Wayne Carini, and we are Talking Classic Cars.
Well, Wayne, it's good to see you again. It's good to be back. I missed the Detroit Concours this year. There's just too many car events going on at the same time. You got to see it, and I want to hear a little bit about the show. But more importantly, you got a moment to sit down with Ed Welburn, a design legend from General Motors. How was that?
You know, the Concours was great. It was wonderful, but to be in the presence of all these great designers, and then of course he's sort of like the king of the hill, Ed Welburn. So Ed's always got a crowd around him, no matter where he goes. And I dragged him over. We were at a cocktail party the night before the show, and it was about 5 p.m. I dragged him over to a picnic table, and we sat down for a few minutes, and I asked him some questions. So I hope you enjoyed the interview. I enjoyed doing it and finding out some things I never knew about Ed Welburn.
So I'm sitting here with my great friend, Ed Welburn.
Well, it's great to call you my friend. I mean, really, I enjoy the time we spend together. Of course, like, so many people, I'm a fan of yours, I see you on TV, and I love the work you do. The day, it was so interesting, the day that I spent in your garage, earlier in that day, I'd been at a very high-end collection, and which I enjoyed.
Yeah.
But I felt like my day began when I got to your garage.
No, well, that's so nice of you to say that.
Honest, I swear to it. It would just, because it's such a wide variety of cars, much wider than I'd ever thought.
I like everything.
And and I could tell that. I mean, cars and motorcycles. And, I don't ride motorcycles. I've only have one riding experience on a motorcycle, but I love motorcycles.
I love, because the art. And just seeing all the mechanical things, the engine sticking out there, and the chain, and I've got 48 motorcycles, and I stopped riding about 10 years ago. I'd been in 3 accidents. And as I got older, I said, I'm not going to heal as easily as I used to. And I decided to stop.
I have a lot of friends who've had accidents, and that's why I don't ride. The one time I rode, I'll never forget, I was 17, and my cousin and I were always paddling around, the same age. He lived in Philly, and I lived out in the suburbs, and I went and picked him up. And this is in the 60s, and you could rent these little Honda, I don't know what it was, Honda 50-something.
Yeah, the 50cc trails or something like that.
Very minimal thing. Yeah. And we rented one, put it in the trunk of my car, took it to Fairmount Park in Philly, and we taught it ourselves how to ride a motorcycle.
Well, I started with a 50 step-through. Remember the step-throughs? Backbone, and I bought that for $10, and that was my first motorcycle. And my parents always told me, if you ever bring a motorcycle home, pack your bags and leave. And so I hid it at my friend's house. And so I've been motorcycle riding since I was, 13 years old.
But I love them. I don't own one, but I would own one or two just for the beauty of them, the exposed mechanics, and every bit is so well done.
It is.
Some of them, right?
They're pieces of art, and they weren't made that way. They were made as a piece of transportation, but the way that they designed them and made them. And there's certain ones like Rough Superiors and Vincent, Black Shadows, and Black Knights.
I love those names.
The names are really, they set it all up. So last night we went to dinner and we were talking about musicians.
Yes.
And did know a certain person. I was so intrigued by that.
Tony
Bennett.
Tony Bennett.
Tony Bennett was one of my favorites in the world. I mean, he had class. He had style.
Such a gentleman.
You could tell. I never met him in my life, but I went to a couple of his concerts, and I was just, as a matter of fact, the last one I saw him at, his daughter was playing with him.
We met here in Detroit. He was at a concert here in Detroit, and a friend of mine knew him quite well, and we're able to go backstage, and I was introduced to him. and he suggested that we all go for drinks. And so it was 6 of us, and I ended up as kind of a long table. He and I were at one end, and I couldn't talk to the man about music. I mean, he's, this legend, but I knew that he painted, and I could talk to him about paintings, about art. And we talked, and he said, even though he had 3 paintings in the Smithsonian and had been painting for years, he still had an instructor. And his instructor wanted him to do a piece of sculpture, because he thought that doing sculpture would help him understand 3-dimensional forms, which would help him as he continued to do his paintings. So Tony asked me what I thought of that, and what was my recommendation. I said, well, my background is design. My background really sculpting, painting, working in clay. And I said, I think your instructor's absolutely right. So he said, well, okay, I'll do one. And Tony and I got to be good friends, and he asked me to join his board. His foundation supports public schools of the arts in New York. And so I'm with them at one of the schools, and I'm giving a speech about design. Takes me aside and said, okay, I did a sculpture. And he pulls out this photograph. He did a sculpture, a bust of Harry Belafonte.
Wow.
That was so good.
Wow.
His very first piece of sculpture. It's like, oh my God, and I mean, it's like, it's not fair that this guy, he can sing, he can paint, he does a piece of sculpture purely because I told him to do it. And it's wonderful.
You know what? I think that certain artists, they have a knack for most anything when you're at that level.
Yeah.
If you picked up a brush and painted a painting, or you had a sculpture, or you sing, it's you have the art in you.
The art is there with him.
Right.
When he turned 90, I gave him a set of cufflinks with Leonardo da Vinci's The Proportion of Man on it.
Oh, that's cool.
Because he was... I thought Tony was like the Da Vinci of our time, And
it certainly was. We talked about sometimes him collaborating with other artists too.
Yeah.
And Lady Gaga.
He would take those artists to a level that beyond where they had been.
When you sing or you perform with a legend, it brings you to that next level. So Lady Gaga, for instance, she was known in a certain area of her expertise, but all of a sudden it opened a new world to her.
To a whole another level. One of the public schools in New York that he was very close to was the Sinatra School, and he named it after Sinatra. And he spent hours in the theater working on the acoustics to get it just right, just hours, days, and in his final years when Alzheimer's was really taking him down, and there were only a few people whose names he knew, didn't know my name. He would do a concert in his apartment every day. A pianist would come in and he would sing a full concert.
Wow.
He knew every word, every note. And then as soon as the piano stopped, he would shut down.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's certain things that we don't know about people, and it's interesting to find those things out,
Yeah. It would have been interesting. I mean, he confessed to me that he never drove a car.
Wow.
And he had a hard time doing that. He was like, Ed, because he knew I was, cars were my world, He said, I've never driven a car.
Wow. Well, as a young boy, he grew up in New York.
Yeah.
And everything was local. I mean, people that lived in the borough or wherever it was. I mean, that was your world.
And he didn't have a lot of money, and he would take taxis or walk or take subways or,
But when you're a little kid, you grow up in a borough, and 10 blocks.
You're right.
Is your world. There is no other world.
That is your world. Yeah. I had a designer who worked for me, Sung Pei, whose parents were from Korea, and he grew up in New York in a neighborhood like that, but it was all Korean. He said everybody spoke Korean. Yeah. And he didn't speak much English at all, although he was born in the States. he lived in this Korean neighborhood in New York.
Well, that's where his roots are, and he realized that, and it was important.
But he became this car crazy guy, though.
We love that.
Yeah.
We love that. So what are you doing now? What are you designing these days? I mean, you come from being at the top of your game at General Motors.
Yes.
I mean, the ultimate. I mean, you couldn't go any further. Within your profession, you could have run the country, the company.
It's true. I mean, couldn't go any higher in design at GM. And there are a couple thousand people reporting to me.
That had to be such a thrill for you. If I imagine you sat around at night sometimes and said, I can't believe this has happened to me.
Well, yeah.
You worked hard at it. I know that. But from the days when you told me the story that you went to the automobile show right here in Detroit, and you went to the stand, you said, I want to work for your company. Tell that story.
Well, it was actually, I like that version, but it was Philadelphia.
Philly, okay.
I was 8 years old, crazy about cars. Parents took me to the Philadelphia Auto Show. And we're walking through, I loved it. It was like my Disney World, my fantasy land, the colors and the lights and the music and the shiny cars. And this one car stopped me in my tracks. And my mother's on my left and my father's on my right. And I said, when I grow up, I want to design cars for that company. I was 8 years old. It was the Cadillac Cyclone concept.
Oh, wow.
And I was a very slow reader as a kid. And my mother tried everything, special classes, all of these, and nothing helped. And she said, this kid's crazy about cars, getting him car magazines. And so by age 11, I had subscriptions to Hot Rod, Motor Trend, sports car graphics. I'd ride my bike down to the Datsun dealership to get automotive news that was, Auto Week. And it was a newspaper.
That was the best.
God,
I love that.
And I'd read all of them cover to cover. And the one ads where people were selling engines and stuff in the back of Auto Week, and that's how I learned how to read. And at age 11, from reading magazine, I found out where that Cyclone came from, and I wrote them a letter.
And look at what happened.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So at any rate, since it's difficult for me to call it retirement. I'm a pretty busy guy. Since graduation from General Motors.
You changed jobs.
The creative juices haven't stopped. They just kind of blossomed and bloomed in different directions. I still sketch cars a bit. Every now and then there's a thought that comes, I'm going to show you one in a bit.
Well, you did it for my magazine. Remember that Edsel grill? Oh my God, it's so cool.
It all stemmed from looking at so many cars today that have these big, bold, and frequently unattractive front ends. And I said, Edsel's just ahead of its time, and so I sketched up that thing, basically, it could be based on a Mustang underbody or something,
right.
And with the Edsel grill, and it would just fit in so perfect.
Oh, it would.
It would. Crazy enough.
Yeah, the design was great.
So any rate, I love writing for the magazine. I really do.
Thank you.
I love writing for it.
You.
I sketch shoes a lot, spend a lot of time. I've sketched hundreds of designs for shoes. It started off with sneakers, then into boots, women's shoes, high-end women's shoes. And, there's some people that say, you need to do something with this stuff. I kind of feel like it's some of the best work I've done.
Really? That's fantastic.
The shoe design.
And then you should go out and find someone.
Yeah, I know. And then beyond that, I've got a movie project that I'm working on. I uncovered this story, a true story from the 1920s. But somebody needs to make a movie about this. And I'm talking to a friend who's a movie producer, but kind of early in her career. And she said, you're right, this should be a movie. And Ed, you're the one to do it. So I formed Welburn Media Productions.
Oh, great.
I hired a team of veteran writers and veteran movie producers, and we have researched and developed the story. The script is done. It's been in the hands of script doctors who have really done their thing, massaging it. And we're now beginning to talk to directors and cast.
Wow. Pretty exciting stuff. Pretty exciting.
I've also, and most people, no one here knows this, I won an Emmy last year. I still can't believe it.
Tell us about that. That seems like
Can you believe
you're
that?
the man of the world.
I won
mean,
an Emmy, you know, so among all these other things that I've got, there's an Emmy that's sincere. I still can't believe it's hard for me to say.
So what was that for?
For a special that I did with PBS. And it was actually started off to be a story about me. And I got so involved in how the story was done that when they won an Emmy for it, I received an Emmy.
Wow.
You win an Emmy.
So last night you showed me the trophy room of your neighbor.
Yes.
Mario Andretti.
Yes.
But Mario doesn't have an Emmy.
No. No, but you know, he has an Oscar.
Does he?
I'm walking through Mario's trophy room one day. Mario, you have an Oscar. It's a great story. He said, you know, Paul Newman used to get nominated for an Oscar quite often.
Right.
And would never win. And he and Mario were close. And this one particular year, Paul Newman got nominated yet again. And Mario was excited for him. Paul said, you know, I'm not even going. I'm not going. I get nominated all the time. I never win. I'm not this. He said, but it's a good party. Mario, why don't you go? If you can, why don't you go? Mario won. Paul Newman won. So Mario calls
goes and
him.
receives the Oscar for him?
Yeah. So Mario's excited for him, calls him, wants to know where do you want the trophy delivered, you know, which house or whatever. Paul says, you keep it.
Wow.
So he has an Oscar.
Paul was like that. I mean, you know, I met him at a pizza place in Willimantic, Connecticut when he was building the Hole in the Wall gang. You know, the retreat for the cancer kids, you know, to go to a summer camp. I mean, he worked there. It's not like he loaned his name. He'd go there all the time and work all day. And then wanted some alone time, so he'd go to this little pizza place in Willimantic, Connecticut, and my friend and I would go there on our motorcycles to play foosball on Friday nights, and who's sitting there but Paul Newman? And we became friends. Sat, you know, asked him if we could talk to him one night, and then 2 weeks later we went again, and he was sitting there again. He said, hey guys, how you doing? You know, it's just like, that's Paul Newman just said hi to me. and that seeded, that really made a difference in my life, because I always adored Paul Newman as an actor. And a person who he was, that had the tenacity to leave Hollywood and have a normal life in Connecticut with Joanne Woodward. And then, so now I own Paul Newman's Volvo station wagon that he built. He built one for himself, one for David Letterman, and one for his accountant. And I have actually Paul Newman's car.
I mean, I've heard of the car. I think I've seen photos of. Yeah.
Pretty cool.
That's a cool
with that
thing
302 Ford in it with a Kenny Bell supercharger and a 5-speed. He didn't want to be. He didn't want people to recognize him in a Mercedes or a Ferrari. He drove a Volvo station wagon, but he wanted it fast.
Wow, that's. I mean, you know, Mario, you know, still lives in
Nazareth. Yeah.
I mean, you know, he has lived there.
Right around the corner from you.
Yeah, not far. Yeah. And he, you know, he never left Nazareth.
That's great.
With all that he has done around the world.
Well, I mean, you know, home is home. When your family's one place, you're attached to your family.
Yeah.
You don't tend to move. I mean, a lot of people do.
Yeah.
But it's like me, they say, why aren't you in California? Why aren't you over here, over there? I said, because I really love where I live.
Yeah.
I look out my door and it's beautiful, and there's a price for everything.
I know.
And you're the same
Where
way.
I live is so comfortable, so peaceful. You know, why am I there? I question it sometimes. But I can walk into any restaurant in New York City in 90 minutes.
Yeah.
Or in Philadelphia, you know.
See, so there's and the same with me. We live 2 hours from Boston and 2 hours from New York City.
Yeah.
You know, the epicenter of the world, right there. And so there is a price for that.
You want to talk about Jimi Hendrix for a second?
Sure, let's talk about Jimmy.
When I found out his last car was a Corvette, I started digging into that because you drive around Allentown, Bethlehem, you get to see these little used car lots, and there's a beat up '69 Corvette sitting there. I was like, that could be Jimi Hendrix.
That's right.
You know what I mean? You see him with the flat tire and dust and dirt, and they're there, and the fiberglass is all kind of.
Well, a '69 Corvette wasn't something that is like a '63 Corvette.
Right.
I mean, there were cars.
Yeah.
A lot of people put them to the side.
Yes.
And they were never restored.
Yeah.
They still haven't been restored. A lot of people are starting to restore because I think it's a good year.
Oh, it's
the coke bottle look and the chrome bumpers.
For the longest, a lot of people didn't care for them, but younger people really like that generation.
Yeah.
That's one of their favorites. But at any rate,
So when did he buy it?
Well, first he had a '68, which he totaled the first day he had it. And then he swore, okay, I'm going to be more respectful. So by the time his manager got him another one, the '69 had come out, and he got a '69 Big Blonde, and he babied it. And drove it for a while, but he was in Europe a lot, so he didn't drive it a lot. And then he dies.
Yeah.
And it went through different hands. The last I could trace it, some street racers had it in Brooklyn. They're using it for street race. They didn't know it was Hendrix's car.
Wow.
They didn't know, and it appears, it gets real sketchy, that possibly the car got parted out. But I chased that.
But you never know.
I chased that.
You never know.
Yeah.
Jimmy was of course, he was our idol. For so long because he was such a really a great artist, but a soft-spoken person.
Yeah.
He didn't want really to be in the spotlight a lot. He wanted to go out and perform.
Yes.
And that was it.
Yeah, that's how I understand it. I always found it interesting, even back then, every one of his albums, there was always a song or two where other members of the band were up front. They did the vocals.
Right.
It's like he shared the spotlight with them.
Well, Jimmy, had a great career in psychedelic style music.
Yeah.
But my two best songs are "Wind Cries Mary" and "Castles Made of Sand."
Yeah.
Those two songs to me, I mean, they're short.
Yeah.
But they get to the meat of the subject. About life.
Yeah.
"Wind Cries Mary" is about life, and "Castle Made of Sand."
Castles Made of Sand.
I have an autistic daughter, and that reminds me of that.
Yeah.
When you just think that you're gonna solve an issue, the water comes and takes that away. And so
the thing that's interesting is, now I'm a Spotify junkie, and if you were to put in that title, "Castle Made of Sand," first Jimi Hendrix version, but there are other
lots of other ones, and they're all really well done.
Really good.
Really well done.
The London Philharmonic has done it. I think a couple of they've done Led Zeppelin's, but
there's so many great artists out there, and we grew up in a hell of a good time.
Yeah.
Of life, of everything in the world. I think when we grew up, it was the cars were unbelievable.
The cars were incredible.
The shapes. We talked about that today, and we talked about how going to car shows was such an experience. So Ed, we're here at the Detroit Concours, and it's always fun to be here in Detroit. I mean, this is a wonderful venue, but it's where you spent a lot of time.
I spent a lot of years here.
Yeah,
a lot of years. When I came here, Detroit, I think was really at a real low point. It was a tough city, a great city. I remember long unemployment lines and all that. I remember as a young designer, everyone talked about, the Axeman, because there were layoffs coming. The Axeman was coming closer and closer. I never got laid off, but it came close. And there were highs, there were lows in the city, highs and lows in the auto industry, a lot of highs, so many things that were like a dream. for me. And it went by in a flash. I mean, 44 years.
It's unreal. You know, if you really think about it, the car's been around about 130 years. The automobile, gasoline-powered engine vehicles, and how far it's come in that short period. If we look at people say, oh, that's such a long time. No. I mean, we're talking thousands, hundreds of thousands of years. This planet has been here, and civilizations. And to create what we've created in such a short period of time, it's just amazing.
Involved in that period of time. You're absolutely right. I mean, that period of time is just like an instant, you know, in the history of the world.
That's right.
And for
like striking a match in that little, and that's it.
And for an automobile to evolve and to do what it has done and have such an effect on the culture.
Well, I think, you know, Henry Ford had a lot to do with that. You can think what you want to think about Henry Ford, but he wanted society to see the country. He wanted to have people see the country, and that's what he said he wanted to design the car for. He fought with his son, Edsel Ford, you know, and said, you know, Edsel wanted to be about style and grace and beauty, and he said, no, we're going to make a car that's simple to use and cheap. And, you know, Model Ts were made in black. Specifically so they could dry faster going down the line. Black paint dried faster than any other color.
I didn't realize that. I never knew that.
Yes. So black paint dries faster than any other color, and that's what he wanted. Speed and efficiency.
Well, and you think about it, as you sit here, we're here on Woodward Avenue, and there are little shops all over town back in those days.
Oh, yeah.
You know, Dodge Brothers were down that way, and they made fenders, you know, and
they evolved into car companies. You know, in Indiana, there was over 100 car companies at one time in Indiana.
Wow.
And these were guys trying it out in their backyards. Some had bigger shops. But everybody got into that. And the Industrial Revolution, to me, after going to the Ford Museum for probably the 30th time yesterday, I mean, I understand that. You know, they were trying so many different things, but it changed the world. It changed the world. So really great to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you.
Yeah, nice to be here with you.
It's fun to be a part of it. I mean, it's this little time that we spent together is going by like a flash.
It sure does. It sure does. But we'll extend it as long as we can.
Enjoy the weekend.
Here's to your health.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Wow, what a fascinating interview. You know, Ed is this man of many talents, many mysteries, and the fact that he had this connection to Tony Bennett, I did not see that coming. I would have never known that, and it's amazing that you got that story out of him.
That's what makes so interesting, sitting down and talking to people, because you see him in one type of an environment sometimes, and all you talk about is cars if we're at a car show. But to sit down with somebody just one-on-one, sort of having a beer and just shooting the crap, I mean, you know, that's what really makes these interviews so cool and so intuitive, you know, to find out some cool things about that person that would never have come up.
Yeah. So what else was great about Detroit? Because I missed it. What were some of the highlights for you? They do it right in downtown by the Detroit Institute of the Arts, right?
Yes. Yeah. You know, there were some really cool cars, cool hot rods. Ralph Gilles hauled me over to the Chrysler exhibit. And he had like 6 cars to pick out, and he and his fellow judge couldn't quite make up their mind which should win their class, because it was the judging was so tight with the scores. Certain classes just had such great cars in them. And then of course the George Barris AMC was there. That is so outrageous. It's so cool. And that's what you see. You know, a lot of Autorama cars come to that show. A lot of factory cars. The new Cadillac was there, so it was kind of cool to see that. And then, of course, the Best in Show. There was such great competition for that. But you know, Ted Stahl's a great Delahaye won the class, and it's just a wonderful car. So always great to go to Detroit, see our friends in the automotive industry. Every one of them is just terrific. And then to be at a Concours, and Haggerty just does a great job putting it on.
Yeah, good times. I'm going to be there next year.
So what have you been doing? Where you been?
I've been a lot of places, both for work and for fun. Lots of car things going on and swirling. We haven't talked since I got back from Rennsport Reunion, which was the same weekend as Audrain, unfortunately. But Rennsport Reunion, for those who don't know, is the largest Porsche gathering in the world. This was the seventh one. They only happen every 3 or 4 years. The last one was pre-pandemic 2018. And they had 91,000 people at Laguna Seca for the weekend.
Wow. Wow.
It was phenomenal. Every car that you could ever imagine, every single living racer who ever raced a Porsche 917 racers and, everything, it was all there. And just a phenomenal weekend of racing and on stage personalities and lectures, car reveals. They really knocked it out of the park because Rennsport is Porsche supported. It's a factory supported event. And I can't even imagine the logistics it took for them to put this together. But I really had a good time. We brought the original Sally Carrera, the 996 car that we built for cars. We brought the life-size Lightning McQueen, so they were together. And then the Sally Special, which you and I have talked about, the gentleman who bought that car brought it up for Rennsport. So it was really cool to see it again as well.
That's great. That's great. Well, I've been down to the Barber Museum, to the motorcycle races down there. Another great event, Motorrad, which was part of BMW's display, was outrageous. They did such a wonderful job. These new BMW motorcycles are fantastic, really out of sight. And then I did a panel discussion. So it was a great event. I love it down there. And of course, I swear every time I go, I'm not coming home with anything. Oh, I came home with another motorcycle this year. So, but my wife says, "Who's that for?" I said, "Oh, it's for Connor." Oh,
of course.
Turn it out,
Can't reach the pedals, but that's fine.
Yeah, the Audrain was great. A little wet on Saturday, but everything came together for the Concours on Sunday. Just a wonderful group of cars. They keep improving. The cars come up from all over the country to go to that show. But what I like is that they don't lose the feeling of a local car show too. Yeah. So you got Duesenbergs and Packards and all these unbelievable cars coming to the show from California, Florida, everywhere across the United States. But yet they want to make sure that they recognize local people and their cars too. So it's not just like a very big exclusive thing that, sort of like Pebble Beach. They want to make sure that it really recognizes the local flavor. So yeah, it's doing that. And then I'm on my way out your way, and hopefully I'll get to see. I'm going to go to Velocity event at Sonoma.
I'll be there too. I'll be there too.
Yeah.
The Velocity Invitational is pretty fantastic. The gentleman who puts it on, Jeff O'Neill, started this thing just out of this love of motorsport. First year he did it was at Sonoma, and he somehow cajoled Mercedes to bring an F1 car and take it around the track and set a track record at Sonoma, which is phenomenal. I got to see that. It moved to Laguna Seca for the last, 2 years, and now it's back at Sonoma again, which I'm really excited about. It's a smaller track than Laguna Seca, but I think it also makes the event feel more cohesive in my mind for the size of the event. He's going to have, I think McLaren is partnered with it. So I think Zach Brown is coming out with Lando Norris, the F1 racer, will be there. So it should be a pretty cool weekend.
It should be. I'm so excited about going. I'm giving a talk at the California Automobile Museum in Sacramento on Friday. And then Saturday morning, we're hoofing it over to the Sonoma Raceway, and we'll be part of that event. So we look forward to seeing you on Saturday over there.
Okay, sounds good.
Well, let's wrap up this week. It's been a great visiting again with you, and hearing from Ed Welburn was just such a great thing. Well, we have many other things coming. Chattanooga, we're going to be talking about that on our next show.
Yeah, we'll both be there, which will be exciting.
Yeah. Take care, Jay.
All right. Road.